Okay. So I have a list of playoff scenarios here and what I think is going to happen. Um, let's start off by one thing, right? So Colin Cowherd mentioned something. I watched it just about 5 minutes ago. He said, "Why put Patrick Mahomes at the top of the MVP race right now when you got Andrew Luck?" Okay, all right. But Andrew Luck's been playing great in the last 6 out of 7 games. We're not looking at the last 6 to 7 games. We're looking at the entire season. That's the point of an MVP. The entire season, not 6 or 7 games. I don't care how well he's played in the past 6 or 7 games. He's barely in the hunt in the playoffs. That doesn't matter. What matters is how that MVP performed the entire season. So he's putting Andrew Luck at the top because Andrew Luck's played great the last 6 out of 7 games. Oh yeah? What about that one game he got blanked by Jacksonville 6-0? What about that 3-game losing streak at the beginning of the season? You think he looked good then? It's about looking good the entire season, not just part of it. You don't win MVP by looking good part of the season. Cam Newton in 2015, he was 15-1. They weren't outstanding for part of the season. They was outstanding the entire season. They went to the Super Bowl that year and lost. You do not win MVP by completing, by completing a 4-12 record or an 8-8 record. That's 500. Nobody cares. Nobody cares about what you did in one half of the season if you look like shit in the first half. See what I'm saying? So while we're on that topic, let's do this real fast. Let's look at stats. If I can keep this up. Whoops, sorry. Come on, stand up. There we go. Okay, well, that is definitely not what I wanted to do. Okay, all right. So we're gonna go and we're gonna look up. We're gonna look at all these stats and we're gonna compare them. I can tell you right now why Patrick Mahomes is at the top of the MVP race. Look, the guy has played, regardless of what wins and losses the team has made, okay, he has played more consistent than these other quarterbacks. So here's my proof. We're going to talk about Andrew Luck last because Andrew Luck is the guy that he's putting at the top. I don't know why, but Colin Cowherd wraps his lips around Andrew Luck's ass. I don't know why. Look, is he comeback player of the year? Absolutely. Absolutely, Andrew Luck is the comeback player of the year. That is without a doubt, that is a thing. Calling him the uprunner and the MVP, he's not even in the race. Because you know what? He only played good for half of the season, a little over half. That's not good enough for MVP. MVP is playing good the entire season. It's not being inconsistent and jumping all over the place. So we're going to start with Drew Brees because he's the other runner. And then we'll go to Jared Goff. So, Drew Brees, first game, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Second game, 2 touchdowns, no picks. 3 touchdowns, no picks. The Giants, no touchdowns, no picks. There's an inconsistency. And yes, I'm not saying that Patrick Mahomes doesn't have any because he does. He just has fewer than everybody else. Redskins, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Ravens, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Played good that game. Vikings, 1 pick, 1 touchdown. Rams, 4 touchdowns, no picks. 3 touchdowns, no picks. 4 touchdowns, no picks. 4 touchdowns, 1 pick. Here you go. Here's where it gets inconsistent. Cowboys, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Buccaneers, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Panthers, no touchdowns, 1 pick. In the last 3 games, he has been very inconsistent. He has, and they're not even that great of teams. I mean, Cowboys are a subpar 500 team that got blown out by the Colts. The Buccaneers are the bottom feeders of that division. And the Panthers are right behind them at barely, I think they're a game under 500. And he could not get it done against any of these. He won. Let's get that straight. Except for the Cowboys, he lost that game. So he won 2 out of the 3 games. But look at his stats. That's where the inconsistencies lie. And let's look at Jared Goff. Look at his stats, right? Seahawks. 1 touchdown, 2 picks. No touchdowns, 1 pick. Then he heated up. 2 touchdowns, no picks. 3 touchdowns, no picks. 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. 2 touchdowns, no pick. 4 touchdowns, no picks. 1 touchdown, a pick. 0 touchdowns, 4 picks. 0 touchdowns, 2 picks. So why is Mahomes at the top of the race? Because these other quarterbacks have fallen off in the past 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah, you could sit there and say, well, Andrew Luck's been all right in the past 2, 3. Yeah, but he started out 0-3. He got blanked by the Jaguars in that one loss, 6-0. So he didn't play worth a shit in that game. So overall, this season, Jared Goff, 27 touchdowns, 13 picks, 4,273 yards, passer rating of 64.5. So I'm going to write this down before we do all the playoff scenarios, because it bugged me. It bugged me. I was like, man, you're gonna take Andrew Luck because of 6 out of 7 weeks, really? And that one game that he lost, he played like absolute dog shit. Inconsistencies. So Goff, 4,273 yards, 27 touchdowns, 13 picks, 64.5 is a passer rating. Drew Brees this season. Let's see, 3,666 yards. That's an odd number. 31 touchdowns, 5 picks, passer rating of 74.9. That's where Drew Brees is beating everybody. He has less interceptions, and he has a high-ass passer rating. But that shit's going to go down if he keeps playing like he is. Maybe not the passer rating. The passer rating stayed consistent. But the picks are definitely going to go up if he keeps playing like shit. Let's see. Get that out of here. Patrick Mahomes. Okay. Well, let's do Andrew Luck first, so that way we get a good comparison, right? Here we go. I'm sorry. I missed part of it on Jared Goff's part. The beginning of the season. 2 touchdowns, no picks against the Raiders. 1 touchdown and a pick against the Cardinals. 3 touchdowns, 1 pick against the Chargers. 5 touchdowns and no picks against the Vikings. There you go. Okay, Andrew Luck. Started out the season. 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Got 2 touchdowns and a pick. Got beat by the Bengals. 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. 1 touchdown, no picks. 4 touchdowns, no picks. 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. 4 touchdowns, 3 picks. 4 touchdowns, no picks. 3 touchdowns, no picks. That was against the Bills and Raiders, by the way. 3 touchdowns and a pick against the Jaguars. 3 touchdowns and no picks against the Titans. 3 touchdowns, 2 picks. Then the last 3 games, no touchdowns and a pick. 2 touchdowns and a pick. No touchdowns and no picks. And they beat the Cowboys 23-0. And he had no touchdowns and no picks. And he only threw for 192 yards. And they blew him out 23-0. Explain that. Explain that, Cowherd. So here we go. Luck. What does he have this season? He has 3,951 yards. He has 34 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, and his passer rating is 67.3. Okay, so here we go. Here's the big shebanger. Here's Patrick Mahomes. Okay, here's where your consistency is going to pay off. And by the looks of it, he's got a couple games that are iffy. 2 of them. Maybe 3 if you count the Patriots game, but he still threw for 4 touchdowns there. So here we go. 4 touchdowns, no picks. 6 touchdowns, no picks. 3 touchdowns, no picks. A touchdown, no picks. The Jaguars, no touchdowns and 2 picks. That's his 1 down game. And they beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 34-14. They aren't that great. That's his 1 dud out of the entire season. And you could count the Ravens because he had 2 touchdowns and 1 pick. Rams, he had 6 touchdowns and 3 picks. He still had way more. He had over half the touchdowns that he did pick. My dog's feeling better if you can't tell. And I guess maybe you could throw in the Patriots, but he had 4 touchdowns and 2 picks. So where all these quarterbacks are getting donut holes, he had 1. He had 1 game where he didn't throw for a touchdown. 1 game. You go back over Andrew Luck, he had 1, 2. He had 2 games where he threw no touchdowns, and he had 2 games where he almost 4 games where he threw almost as many picks as he did touchdowns, if not as many. 6 games total that he played like shit. Jared Goff, 2 games without a touchdown, 3 games without a touchdown. 3 games without a touchdown. He had 1 game where he had a touchdown and a pick. He had 1 game where he had a touchdown, 1 touchdown and 2 picks. He had, that's when they played the Seahawks. He had 1 game where he had no touchdowns and a pick. And then he had the game against the Bears where he threw no touchdowns and 4 picks, and he played the Eagles last week and he had no touchdowns and 2 picks. Inconsistencies. Drew Brees, he had 2 games where he got donut holed. 2 games where he threw no touchdowns. 1 game he threw no touchdowns, no picks. 1 game he threw no touchdowns and a pick, but he also had 2 other games where he threw a touchdown and a pick. 3 other games where he had a touchdown and a pick. See what I'm saying? As many touchdowns as they do picks. And if not, they're lopsided to where they don't have any touchdowns, but they have picks. Patrick Mahomes, on the other hand, you have 1 game where he got donut holed, and that was the only game where he threw more interceptions than he did picks. Or as many picks as he did touchdowns. If I didn't slur my shit there. So let that sink in. So Patrick Mahomes on the season. 4,543 yards so far, 45 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions, and he has a passer rating of 67.1. So, what have we learned here, Colin? I'm not an NFL analyst. I'm just a basic guy, right? What do I know? So, Patrick Mahomes is only under Andrew Luck's passer rating by 0.2%, which is next to nothing. Drew Brees, nobody is catching his passer rating, 74.9. Nobody's catching that. Jared Goff has the lowest passer rating out of all 4 of these guys. So you can't use passer rating as an excuse. He doesn't have as many touchdowns as Patrick Mahomes. He has more interceptions than Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes has thrown for more yardage, and he hasn't had as many bad games as Andrew Luck. So where in the frickin' hell do you see Andrew Luck winning an MVP? You need to unglue your lips from his ass cheeks, dude, because this is hard proof right here. Andrew Luck is not an MVP this year. Comeback player of the year? Absolutely. Hands down, he is comeback player of the year. MVP? Hell no, this ain't an MVP. Because you know what? There's 3 other guys on the list that are in the MVP running that he's not, that deserve a shot. And the other 2 have not played as consistent as Patrick Mahomes. That's why they're saying that Patrick Mahomes is the MVP runner right now, because he's more consistent than these other 3 guys. You can argue that point all you want. Stats speak. Well, he's 0-4 against the teams that he played that are big games. What about the Chargers in the first week? You ain't going to count that because the Chargers got beat? Is that what it is? Is that why you're not counting it? Because it was week 1. He beat the Chargers. But, since the Chargers came to Arrowhead and made a massive comeback, all of a sudden we forget about that one loss that the Chargers had, right? New England, he played in Foxborough. How many guys start their first year, go into Foxborough and beat Tom Brady? You go ahead, tell me. Because I bet you one of them's Russell Wilson and I bet you the other one's Colin Kaepernick. And yes, Colin Kaepernick was a good football player back in the day. And yes, he went to Foxborough his first year as a starter. I think it was, well, they didn't play him their first, I think it may have been their second year. But that was his first full year, second year. They went to Foxborough. He turned it over 3 times, or four times. He turned it over 4 times, that team did, and they won by 7 in Foxborough when it was raining. Russell Wilson is probably the other one. Did Goff go to New England and win? Hell no, because he didn't play New England. Did Drew Brees go to New England and win? Nope, because he didn't go to New England. Did Luck go to New England and win? No. Luck lost by 10. All right, I think it was 10. Let me look. Andrew Luck. His passer rating was 64.4 that game, 365 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 2 picks. Okay, let's see what Patrick Mahomes did against the Patriots. 63.9, 352 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 picks. So it's about even. Okay, let's see what the team did. And you know what? He's starting this argument of, Luck don't have near the weapons that Patrick Mahomes does. Yeah, because Patrick Mahomes can control that, right? Right? He can control. Patrick Mahomes can just walk up in there and be like, yeah, I don't want any of these guys. Patrick Mahomes went into Denver last year in his first career start, won 27-24. He had to be put back in on the last drive of the game because Tyler Bray fumbled the ball and almost lost the game. And he gave Albert Wilson 150 yards, and he didn't have Tyreek Hill. He didn't have Gronkowski because they set most of the starters for the playoffs. What do you mean Patrick Mahomes can't do this without the players? He lost his star running back, still winning football games. I mean, yeah, we lost to the Chargers. It's a divisional game. They can always go either way. And the Chargers are the best team in any division right now besides our own because we technically got the first seed. You put the Chargers in any other division in the AFC, and they're in the first seed. We have 2 first AFC seeds in the same division. And they lose 1 game, and all of a sudden we forget about the 10-point loss they took to Kansas City in the first game, right? Absolutely. So the final score to the Patriots-Colts game was 38-24. Every time Andrew Luck, I remember watching the highlights, every time Andrew Luck had a chance to come back, he blew it. He blew it. And yeah, you could argue the same point for Mahomes, against the Rams. But you know what? Let's go back to those games. The Patriots, he capitalized. He scored. The defense failed. And they didn't stop Tom Brady, and Tom Brady won the game. Pat Mahomes did his job. I don't care if you say he lost the game or not. He didn't. It was on the defense. Let's see. What's the other game? Oh, yeah, the Rams. The Rams. Patrick Mahomes is driving down the field, and guess what? Sam and Burkham, or however you say his last name, made a hell of a play, hit Patrick Mahomes in his arm while he was throwing. The ball popped up, and it was an interception. Patrick Mahomes didn't throw that pick to somebody. He got hit. That's how the pick took place. And then he gets the ball back with 27 seconds left, and he gets criticized because he throws it downfield. What else are you supposed to do? You got 27 seconds left. You're down by 4. You're at your own 20. What's left to do? Shove that shit downfield and hope somebody catches it. The other interception wasn't his fault. He got hit while he was throwing. Is the line to blame? Not really. The kid just made a hell of a play. He came up and hit Pat Mahomes directly in his arm when he was passing. Which, by the way, the Rams got the ball on that drive before. The defense couldn't stop him. Orlando Scandrick had a chance to pick off a ball, dropped it. There would have been your game right there. And then you wouldn't have been saying shit like this. Let's go to the Chargers game. So the Chargers are down 28-21, right? Game's on the line, division's on the line. Patrick Mahomes gets the ball at his own 15 or something like that. First play, it's a handoff. It ain't Darrell Williams. I think it's Damian. Damian Williams, I think his name is. Gets the handoff, loses 3 yards. Nobody blocks. No, there's linemen standing up, turning around, looking at Damian Williams like, oh, you got hit? 3 Chargers had his ass before he even got to the line of scrimmage. Lost 3 yards, right? Second play, we pass it. We get about 8 yards out of it. Guess what? Holding. Back him up. 3rd and 13, he goes back to pass. And he's swallowed up by 3 Chargers before he even gets 2 steps into his 3 steps drops. Just collapse on him. It's like the line didn't even want to be out there. I mean, I know the Chargers were playing their ass off, don't get me wrong, but it's like the line didn't even want to block. You can't pass the ball if the line ain't going to block, especially on a long down like 3rd and 13. So we punt the ball. Guess who lets him in the end zone? The defense. The same defense that let him in the end zone before. And then you're going to sit there and say, oh, well, I'm not blaming Pat Mahomes for all these losses, but he's 0-4 in big games. So, tell me this, Cowherd. How is Pat Mahomes 0-4 in big games when he's only lost 3? And those were his exact words. He's 0-4 in big games. 0-4. 0-4. Well, he's only got 3 losses. Did you think the Chargers beat him the first time? Do you? Is that what you're thinking? Because he's only lost 3 games. He's only lost 3 games in his entire career, let alone just this season. So, once again, Patrick Mahomes has more TDs than all of them. Drew Brees is the only one that has less interceptions than him. And Drew Brees is really the only one. He's the only one in the MVP race that has a higher passer rating. So that's where the conflict's coming from. But Pat Mahomes also has more yardage and he has more touchdowns. If you want to add Andrew Luck, the only thing Andrew Luck is doing better than Patrick Mahomes is a passer rating by 0.2%. Yeah, get the hell out of here. Go. No. Andrew Luck should not be in the MVP race, period. Like I said, come from behind player of the year, absolutely, hands down. MVP race, not just no, but hell no. He is, the only guy he's beaten out is Jared Goff. That's it. Maybe he should be in 3rd place for the MVP race, maybe. Should he be in the top 2, let alone at the top? No, his stats prove it. They're not good. They're not near as good as any of these other guys. No. So just shut up with that. Shut up. You obviously have a flaw in your system. It's not working. Did you forget about us beating Baltimore? They're a playoff team. He's the reason we won that game. You aren't going to mention that, are you? So anyways, Cowherd, after I prove you wrong, since you're an NFL analyst, or a sports analyst, and I'm just a guy, there's your proof. You're wrong. He shouldn't be. You are absolutely wrong. The MVP race does not give a shit what happened in the last 6 to 7 games. They care about what happened the entire season. I don't care if his passer rating is godlike in the past 6 to 7 games. I don't care if his touchdown to interception ratio is godlike in the past 6, 7 games. You're only mentioning that because before that, he was shit. That's why you mention that. And he's on a downhill slide right now. And you say, oh, the games that matter are in December. Oh, yeah? Well, if that's so, Jared Goff ain't performing in December. Guess what? Andrew Luck hasn't performed in December. And neither is Drew Brees. The only guy that has is Patrick Mahomes. He's the only guy that's performed in December. 4 touchdowns, no interception, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, 2 touchdowns, and no picks. Drew Brees in December. 1 touchdown and a pick, no touchdowns and a pick in his game before that. Right before December, 1 touchdown and a pick. Jared Goff in December. 1 touchdown, 1 pick, no touchdowns, 4 picks, no touchdowns, 2 picks. So you want to talk about December? Who's good in December? Who is it? Because it ain't any of those guys. You're wrong, Kaepernick, and I can prove it. You're absolutely wrong. You are wrong. So here we go. Here's the meat of the video. Here's the rest of the video. Playoff scenarios. What do I think's going to happen? What can happen? So we're going to start off with the Chiefs, obviously. The Chiefs, they got a game at Seattle and they got a game at home against the Raiders. The best they can do is 13-3. The worst they can do is 11-5. 12-4 is an option. Chargers, they got to go they got to play against the Ravens this weekend, and they got to go with that to Denver. The best they can do is 13-3. The worst is 11-5. 12-4 is an option. The Ravens, they got to go at the Chargers, and they got to play home against the Browns. Their best is 10-6. Their worst is 8-8, and 9-7 is an option. The Steelers, they got to play at the Saints this weekend, and then they're home for Cincinnati. Their best is 10-5-1. Their worst is 8-7-1. And 9-6-1 is an option. The Texans, they got to play at the Eagles and they got to play versus the Jaguars. The best they can do is 12-4. The worst they can do is 10-6. 11-5 is an option. Patriots, they got to play at home against the Bills and at home against the Jets. The best they can do is 11-5, which I'm sure they will. Worst they can do is 9-7. 10-6 is an option. I threw the Colts in here for good measure. But I highly doubt they're getting in. There's your MVP candidate, Colin Cowherd. You know, one that doesn't make the playoffs. They got to play against the Giants at home, and then they got to go to Tennessee. Tennessee is hot right now. They are one of the very few teams. The Chargers and the Titans are the only 2 teams that have won so far in December and not lost a game. The best they can do is 10-6. Worst is 8-8. 9-7 is an option. What do I think is going to happen? Okay. All right. Let's look at this. The Chiefs can go 13-3. They can beat the Ravens. They can beat the Seahawks. And if the Chargers lose to the Ravens, that would put us at 13-3. Them at 12-4. That would put them in the 5th seed and us in the 1st seed. It can go the completely opposite way. We could go 12-4, lose to the Seahawks. It's all about the next game. At this point, it's all about the next game. If they lose to the Ravens and we lose to the Seahawks, it just goes on in the next week. There's a whole shitload of scenarios here, so bear with me. Here's my honest opinion. I don't think the Chiefs will lose to the Seahawks. We haven't lost back-to-back games this year. Patrick Mahomes usually bounces back. The defense has got Eric Berry back, which nobody talks about. Nobody talks about that first half when Eric Berry helped the defense hold Phillip Rivers to just 7 points. I don't think there's a game this year where the Chargers have only scored 7 points in the first half. If there is, I can't think of it. I would have to really look. I don't think they did against the Bengals. No, the Bengals didn't hold them. The Steelers did. The Steelers held them to 7 points. Obviously, the Cardinals didn't. They scored 28 points in the second damn half. The Broncos did not. What about the Raiders? The Raiders did not. The Seahawks did not. What about the Titans? The Titans lost to 1 point by them. Nope, they didn't either. Not even going to look at that game. There's no point. I know they didn't. They didn't there either. So, even the Rams didn't hold them to 7 points and a half. Even the Rams didn't hold them to 7 points and a half. Let that sink in. So, and we allowed 12 points in the first game, in the first half. So all season, the only two teams to hold Phillip Rivers at 7 points by half or less were the Chiefs and the Steelers. Now, we lost both teams lost those games against Chargers. But let that sink in. Only two teams held Phillip Rivers to 7 points and a half. Nobody talks about Eric Berry. It was Joey Bosa this, Joey Bosa. Joey Bosa has had I think maybe one sack in that game. If that. I don't even know if he did that. Yeah, it doesn't say here. Either way, nobody wanted to talk about that first half for Eric Berry. Okay? Eric Berry came back, held him to 7 points. Nobody takes that in consideration. If he played a full game, what do you think would have happened? He is the commander of that defense. Wherever he's at, he's pulling. I can tell you what Eric Berry I watched. From the highlights, I didn't watch the full game because I was at work. I seen Eric Berry lining guys up, pointing out which guy they need to cover, mixing up coverages. That's the Eric Berry that I seen. If Eric Berry can do that to Phillip Rivers as hot as he is, Russell Wilson will be a challenge, but I think he can stop him. The Raiders, what do you think he's going to do to Derek Carr? If they make them take more time, they're going to get sacked. Our D-line is good this year. Chris Jones, one of the leading sackers in the league. Nobody talks about him. They just want to talk about Joey Bosa coming off injury. Woo! Joey Bosa coming off injury. Who cares? Point is, Eric Berry coming back and the way he played against Chargers, if he plays that way against Seattle, they're not losing that game. Defense will play good enough. Patrick Mahomes will pull his weight. They'll get it down the field and win. So let's say the Chiefs go 13-3, Chargers go 12-4. Chargers take the 5th seed, Chiefs take the 1st seed. I think that the Ravens will go 10-6 and win out. I think that the Ravens will beat the Chargers, and I think they will beat the Browns. Now, of course, this is kind of what I want to happen. There is a part of me that says, yeah, the Chargers will win. But this game can go either way, man. Because you got to think. The Ravens are fighting for a playoff spot. They are fighting the Steelers for that seed. I think the Ravens can do it. The Steelers, I say they lose one game. They lose one game to the Saints. But they beat the Bengals, so they finish 9-6-1. The Patriots, I say they go 11-5. They win out. I think the Texans will go 12-4 and win out. Bills and the Jets shouldn't be a problem for the Patriots, and I don't see the Texans losing to the Eagles or Jags. Even as good as the Eagles played last week, I just don't see it. I think the Colts will finish 9-7. I think they'll beat the Giants, but they'll go get their ass whooped by the Titans. which ultimately puts the Colts at 9-7 and the Steelers at 9-6-1, which means the Colts have one more loss. They're out of the playoffs. What does this mean? This means that the Ravens will have the 4th seed, and they will be playing the Chargers at Baltimore. This means that Kansas City and Houston will have the 1 and 2 seed, and this means that the Steelers will be playing the Patriots in Foxborough. Now, there's obviously way more scenarios that could happen. The Chargers could take the 1st seed, we could take the 5th seed, and we would be going to Baltimore or Pittsburgh. It's a possibility. There's plenty of more. We'll just have to see how it plays out. This video has been long, but that is what I think will happen. Eric Berry is back on the defense. He's commanding the defense. I just think with the way that he plays and the way he sets people up, I think we'll be fine. You know, and you look at what the Seahawks have done. Of course, they are playing a lot better football than what they were before. You know, no doubt about that. Oh my gosh. I just want to see the full schedule. Here we go. So let's see what the Seahawks have done all year. Real quick before I cut this off. All right, so week 1 they lost to the Broncos 24-27. It was at Denver. I understand that. Week 2 they lost to the Bears 17-24. Bears are a tough team. They beat Dallas 24-13 in Seattle. They beat the Cardinals 20-17. They lost to the Rams 31-3. Rams are a divisional team that's tough. They thumped Oakland 27-3. They had a bye week. They beat Detroit 28-14 off the bye. They lost to the Chargers 17-25. They lost to the Rams again 31-36. They beat Green Bay by 3, 27-24. They beat the Panthers 30-27. They beat the 49ers 43-16. They beat the Vikings 21-7. They lost to the 49ers 23-26, and now there's the Chiefs game. The Seahawks have an advantage. They're playing at home. I heard it's going to be rainy. It's Washington. It wouldn't surprise me. But my point here is all their games, they keep them really close besides that one blowout against San Francisco. They keep them really close. And Patrick Mahomes, all the teams that he lost to were damn good teams that they lost to. If Pat Mahomes can go into Foxborough and make it a 3-point game, he can go into Seattle and win with Eric Berry behind him. I'm a firm believer. I think the pass rush is going to get after Wilson. I think they're going to flush him out. Obviously, the Seahawks are going to try to use their running game and make it a low-scoring game. We'll see what happens. I like our odds. It's in Seattle. I get it. It's rainy. Who cares? He played a rainy game against Jacksonville, a mudslide. I mean, yeah, it was at home, but it was still a mudslide, and he threw it just fine. He had 2 picks. He tried to squeeze things in there. Jacksonville was the #1 defense at the time. We will see what happens.